Thanks, Paul. Well, on the day of one of the most significant developments in the debate about immigration policy, we of course asked the government to take part in this programme, but we were told that nobody was available. I'm joined now by Sir Digby Jones, who formerly led the CBI, Lord Bruce Lockhart of the Local Government Association, and Ursula Gacek, who is a Polish senator. Lord Bruce Lockhart, first of all, if people are here legally mostly, if they're working mostly and contributing to our economy, why does it matter if the government have undercounted the numbers?
Well, I think we need to go back to the start and recognise that we've had a huge increase in migration in the half dozen or so years. That has both been immigration from Eastern Europe, but we need to remember also that of course we had a huge number of asylum seekers and migration. Migration is one of the major issues for 21st century. The sort of movement of people from the less affluent, less stable countries, quite understandably people wanting to move to live in the more prosperous and perhaps democracies. Now, why does it matter? Many countries have what they call a managed system. The Office of National Statistics said recently that the available estimates and numbers of migrants was inadequate for managing policy and managing services, and they sent that letter to 4 government departments. So that was a clear indictment that we simply don't have the figures available.
Well, so Digby, even if you're broadly in favour of immigration, do you accept that an unmanaged system is bound to cause concerns, some considerable fear, and lead to people to think that the government isn't in control of our borders?
Yes, I do. I actually believe that government incompetence in this area is going to do 2 things. At one level, it's going to cloud the real issue, and secondly, it's going to fan the flames of prejudice. It's going to lose people's confidence in the whole migration issue, and I think that's a real danger. But I don't want government incompetence to really cloud what is the essential part of what you've been reporting on, and that is this country can't do without them. This summer you won't get your fruit picked if they're not here. If they all go home, you won't get your houses built and your factories built and your offices built and your schools and hospitals built. And don't try and get served at a table anywhere in a restaurant in Britain if they go home. And at the same time, as Mervyn King clearly pointed out, it has had a benign effect on inflation, which means that everybody listening to this programme with a mortgage is paying less for their mortgage because Poles are in Britain working hard.
Forgive me for interrupting, but those are all middle-class concerns, and there are many people who feel that they're being pushed out in the job market by people coming in taking their jobs.
Well, there are a lot of people on low incomes with mortgages. It's not just a middle-class issue. But they're not coming in to take jobs. What they're coming to do is fill up the capacity where there were no one wanted to do the job. In Western Europe, not just in Britain, in the whole of Western Europe, we've become fat, complacent, lazy and picky. And we're actually saying the sorts of work we don't want to do. And therefore, if we are going to live in a competitive world, if we're going to exist in a world that's changed forever, if we're not going to have our own coming out of schools being able to read, write and count, if we're not going to have our own saying we will work harder for less, then other people are going to fill that, or the jobs won't go to Brits, the jobs will actually go to China. And if you do that, you have a problem.
Senator Gacek, from your perspective, are we getting your best and brightest who are coming over here quite well qualified and ending up picking fruit and doing fairly menial jobs?
Well, of course you are, and it's not the ambition of the average university graduate in Poland to serve tables, to wait at tables in the London restaurant. I'd like to put your mind at rest possibly on one issue, because the rate at which migration has been growing in the past 2 years, especially from Poland to the United Kingdom, is quite dramatic, and we're also feeling many of the negative aspects of it here in Poland. But as successive countries open up their labour markets, Spain, Greece, Portugal this year, but probably in the medium term, Germany and Austria, which are more attractive propositions for Poles because they're much closer to us, and a lot of Poles have worked there illegally for many years in the past. I believe the pressure will ease somewhat, and maybe what you're seeing is the peak of Polish migration. And as I said, it's not without its problems here at home. We are already suffering from some brain drain. We're running short of anaesthetists, we're running short of nurses, we're running short of builders because most of them have gone to the United Kingdom and also to Ireland. So we also have a problem, and we have youth drain, which, given that Polish unemployment, the rate for unemployment amongst under 25s is 22%, then it's not surprising that people have sought jobs overseas.
Lord Bruce Lockhart, we are getting the best and brightest. Their loss must be our gain, mustn't it?
Well, I mean, I think that Digby's and the government's arguments about strengthening the economy are in part true, but I think the argument that we've just heard from Poland is a wider issue, that we are actually taking skills out of many of the third world countries which badly need those skills, those doctors, those nurses, those engineers.
But I can see why that's a problem for them, but why is that a problem for us?
Well, if you're going to have a managed...
Poland's not a third world country, as the Senator is reminding us.
If you're going to have an issue of managed migration and the debate that John Reid has rightly at last called for, you've got to consider those wider issues, the benefit to our economy, the disbenefit possibly to other economies. But do you think council taxes will have to go up because of this? Because of council taxes will have to go up because of the stresses and strains that your members in the Local Government Association are seeing? What we've said is that there are certain specific councils, and there are some 25 where we have major concern that came to a meeting with us. We took Slough as an example, where the Office of National Statistics said the increase in immigration had been 300. The new national insurance registrations was 9,000, and therefore the funding hasn't been put there because the government is saying they don't have accurate figures.
So Digby, things are going very well for the British economy, but when there is an economic downturn, as there will be, why won't we have lots of Polish and other workers simply on the dole using our welfare services?
Well, we've actually had macroeconomic stability for many years now, low inflation, low interest rates, low unemployment, and some good growth. So the inevitability of a downturn, I'm not too sure it's what you and I would have said many, many years ago. I'm not too sure it's relevant today. If you mean a slowing down, we're having one as we speak. And I'm not at all sure we should be confusing Eastern European, within European Union migration with what we get from other parts of the world.
But would you say then, however, that the British government should think again about Romania and Bulgaria and keep in step with the rest of the big countries in Europe if they decide to close the door in some way to new workers from those countries coming in? Britain should do the same thing.
I wouldn't do it because I'd keep in step with them. I'm really glad that in 2004 we opened up their doors when they didn't. Mind you, we had low unemployment and France and Germany had high unemployment. But I would actually take breath if I was the government with Romania and Bulgaria. One, they're not as skilled in their workforces. Two, there's high levels of corruption, and we don't want that sort of practice in Britain. And thirdly, it is perfectly clear they're losing the public's confidence when it comes to the truthfulness of their figures. And part of this is about winning confidence in Britain's public to understand that the world has changed. Now, what would be a good idea would let the ones who are in assimilate. A lot of them, by the way, are going to go home because a lot of them are migrants, not immigrants.
Well, let me ask Senator Gasek that. Are they? Are they going to go back to Poland? Do you really think people will go to settle for a fifth of the wages they're earning in Britain and go home?
Well, the market is beginning to play its role here in Poland, and I was speaking to a colleague today, and he's recruiting for staff in London amongst Poles to come back to one of Poland's major cities in Wrocław at salaries which are closer to the £500 mark than the 200 or so pounds that you were talking about. So the market is also beginning to come into play here, but also we're not passive to this problem. I'm an opposition senator, and I'm responsible for putting together a package of legislation which will encourage people to come back, and that includes tax breaks for people who will return to Poland. We also need to care for our citizens while they're over in the UK, so we need to expand our consular services, and also we need to work with Polish NGOs and British NGOs, maybe to take some of the pressure off some of the community services that are being burdened with such a high number of migrants.
Bruce Lockhart, finally.
Yeah, can I come in on this issue of low unemployment? My county of Kent, unemployment 18,000. Economically inactive, 159,000. There are 7 million people classified by the government between 16 and 65 who are economically inactive. Surely we need to help them back into the labour market, grow their skills instead of assuming we've got to bring everyone else in.
OK, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you all very much. Well, if Lively